body, that's the ego, the master will appear. That's your higher consciousness, and it will point things out to you. Things have just become so obvious. The film Polar Express, you know, that's about the journey of enlightenment. And people just think it's a Christmas story. No, it's not. It's the same with The Wizard of Oz. It's about enlightenment. Stanley Kubrick's about that as well. But it's the enlightenment within. It's the enlightenment within. It's not technology. Look, how far do you think humanity is away from discovering zero-point energy? How far away do you think humanity is from discovering interstellar space travel with zero-point energy? How long do you think it will be before they're able to warp what they call time and space to achieve time travel? How long do you think it will be? We've got these things called quantum computers. And what would take a supercomputer 1,000 years to do, a quantum computer can probably do in about 3 seconds. They have artificial intelligence computers. There's one called Deep Mind, and it teaches itself, but it has no soul. How long will it be before human affairs are controlled by artificial intelligence? Now, I've already alluded to the fact that it already is, because YouTube took my video down. These are soulless machines. They have no ability to discern how a human subject is feeling or reacting. It has an algorithm. This is the best course of action. It doesn't understand individuality. So what do you reckon the outcome of something like that running countries, justice systems? And it's bad enough having the ego in charge of these things. Can now, at least an ego's got a bit of conscience, a bit of soul. Now let's remove that entirely. What then? But it will look really good. It will be really tempting. What if you could time travel without technology? What if you could leave your body at will and travel faster than the speed of thought? What if you were everything? All-knowing, all-present, omnipresent, all at the same time. Like God. Made in his image after his likeness. But to have it replaced by soulless technology. Take your pick. What would happen to a species that went down that path? Because effectively they've rejected the chief cornerstone. They have rejected the conscious intelligence that builds them. So who would build them then? What would they use to reproduce? Cloning technology? What would the outcome of that be? Well, they'd all look the same. They'd all be the same. They'd all think the same. Soulless. What is a soul? The soul is your individual character. A soul is the story you've told yourself. And you've had many lives. Many, many lives. And this is why Jesus said, what does it serve a man to inherit the earth, but to lose his soul? Now he's talking about this. This is the earth. Not that out there. You could say that humans have inherited the earth. Yeah, we have. We have done a really shit job on that, haven't we? But this is your earth. So you inherit the earth, but you've lost your soul. How does that profit a man? He said, if you lose your life, you will gain it. But if you keep it, you'll lose it. Ooh. So it's important that you overcome the fear of death. This is 2 videos now. Jesus never told the disciples that they would be reincarnated. It's not about that. He talks about being free. I've just alluded to the fact that you've had many lives. So reincarnation is real, because energy, consciousness, cannot die. So when somebody dies, this answers another email. When somebody dies, what they call the Passover, passing over, if they're known, they're known. If they're not known, their soul is erased. That flash of light, that electromagnetic pulse just erases them. They cease to exist. Isn't it funny, when they bury people, they give them a headstone. This is the headstone you should use. And they bury them 6 feet under. 6, the number of man. Not realized. Hasn't lit up his pineal gland, which is 7. 7 is the number of perfection. So there was a guy called Nicodemus, and Nicodemus in the Bible, he was a Pharisee, and he was like a religious teacher for the Jews of the day. And he said to Jesus, how can we be born again? How can I go back into my mother's womb? And Jesus berated him. He said, Nicodemus, you don't know these things? You don't know, and you teach the Jews? Now, a Jew is somebody who meditates, somebody who cleans their house. That's a Jew, not those religious morons. They fucked it up. And Jesus, said, you don't know this, Jesus, Nicodemus? You must be born of the water and the fire. What the fuck does that mean? Well, the water is the cerebrospinal fluid. You raise that energy and you've cleaned the cerebrospinal fluid. You've made it alkaline. Your brain can function better. The energy moves faster. And the fire is the fire of higher consciousness. It goes through your brain and it burns all the shit off. It burns all the chaff off. Gets rid of the garbage. That's what it means. So, those that experience that will know. They don't need to know anything else. The book is just a guide. Once you get all the dross out of the way, it's just a guide for those that have had the Genesis experience in the beginning. When he said to them, what, do you talk about the end when you don't know the beginning? So he berated Nicodemus and he said to him, you need to be reborn. In other words, Nicodemus, you're going to get reincarnated because you fucked it up. You use my name in vain. People believe when you say something like, oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Oh, don't blaspheme the Lord's name. But even Jesus says in the book, you can blaspheme against me, that will be forgiven. They've never read. Please explain to me what they don't understand. So, I ask you this. Do you like it here on the physical plane? Do you like the thought of dying, having your soul erased, and then being reborn to do it all over again. Is that an attractive proposition to you? To come back with no memory of anything, to be a blank canvas again, to start it all over again, to be programmed, to be a model citizen again, only to realize that it's all bollocks. The people that fool people deliberately, their ego doesn't get erased. The people that know the truth, when they die, it's written in the Torah, which is the first 5 books of the Bible. God says, because you took my children away from me, I will take myself away from you. And they get cast into a place called Sheol. And Sheol is a place where there's no light, no consciousness. Science teaches people that matter, material, gives rise to consciousness. This is not true. Consciousness gives rise to matter. So if consciousness withdraws, goes away from them, but their egos stay alive in a place of eternal darkness, no consciousness, just the ego, no material, nothing is manifest, it's just darkness. That's where they go. That's how it's written. And in the book of Revelation, it's written that the light shall leave the world. So the world will become Sheol. The light of higher consciousness has left. In ancient prophecies, like in the book of Hermes Trismegistus, it says the gods shall leave. So the gods are the enlightened. They leave. And that's what the Christians call the rapture, which is a nonsensical thing anyway. You just become one with the unified field and you leave, and nobody can remember you. You are you've left the story. You're just passing by. Now you know why my channel's called Passing By 33. Right, because there will be no light in the world, no truth, just lies. They rejected the truth. Oh, you don't want to know the truth? Fine, have your lies. Enjoy your lies. See you later. And the truth withdraws from them, leaves them to it. Have fun. We'll come back in 3.5 years to clean up. That's what's happening. That's what's going on. And the Exodus is in full effect. The crop is growing right now, waiting for the harvest. Ask yourself, really, do you want to be reincarnated? Here's some hard questions for you. You won't like them. Because you might say, what about my children? They're not yours. Have you been called out, but they haven't? What about my loved ones? It's difficult. everyone has to walk it alone. What about the children? Children will be fine. Nothing will happen to them. They haven't been programmed. There was an experiment in the 60s, and they made a mouse utopia. And they gave the mice everything they needed. They had food, water. If a mouse died, they removed it, so it was kept nice and clean. It was a utopian mouse city. And they put these mice in there, and they were good stock, different bloodlines. And they started breeding like mice do. It's the natural course of things, because everything was provided for. It's a great place to be. It is the proverbial mouse Garden of Eden. And they start producing. And in a very short period of time, Mouse City was full, thousands of mice. Then they started attacking each other. Mothers rejected their children, left them to starve to death. And their mouse utopia, their society, their mice psychology started to break down. But amongst all this chaos, there were these individual mice that kept themselves to themselves, and they cleaned themselves. And when the rest of the mice were sleeping, they were awake, and they'd feed themselves and drink water and groom themselves. And before the other mice woke up, they'd go back to their little places, and they'd stay out the way. And that's psychology at work on mice in an environment. It doesn't matter if the environment's artificial or not, it's still the environment, and the psychology of the mice is going to react to it. They effectively wipe themselves out, but the beautiful ones, as the scientists call these mice that kept themselves separate, they lived. Do you think humans are exempt such psychological things? Or do you see that manifesting in society now? It doesn't mean that you have to withdraw from society or members or your relationships. It just means that, in fact, no, I'm wrong actually. Let me re-put that. You will reassess all of your relationships. And some of them, you will reassess your involvement with society to the point where you'll want to withdraw from it. And you'll invite perhaps somebody who's special to you to come along. I have. But that's a decision they make alone. It's coming to that. Never in the history of mankind has humanity had it so fucking good, so comfortable. But it's becoming a dystopian nightmare because it's all bullshit and everything must go. There's a lot of information in those couple of videos now. Certainly give you something to think about, to muse over. Incidentally, the Muses were 9 goddesses, and they resided over the arts and natural science. It's interesting, that, isn't it? Anyway, folks, look after yourself, especially your higher self.